Hi! It's been a while, huh?
I know. Since before Zach was born, I think we did a live.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time
Okay,
flies.
so we have really missed talking to you guys. We miss talking about it also because a lot of the topics that we talk about in the live is regards to our relationship
Yeah.
and how to be happy in our relationship. And I tell you, ever since Zach was born, we have put in so much work
Yeah,
in our relationship.
I think it's a child is one of the great sort of driving factors, right? To want to have a good relationship with your spouse as well.
Yes.
I think it adds another layer of sort of like saying that I want to build a good household and have a happy relationship.
I guess extra motivation.
Yeah.
But then also, no matter how much we desire something or how much we're motivated to do something, we may not necessarily have the skill sets to be able to do it. So, for example, like if I want to not be triggered or not be angry in my relationship, it really takes a lot of practice. It's not just like, oh, you know what, now that I have a kid, right, I'm going to like magically become someone who is naturally patient.
We always talk about this, right? Like in terms of like desire is not enough.
Yes.
Right? The intention is not enough. You know, when we watch movies, right? We always talk about this.
The
right?
montage.
The montage, or at this point, sometimes something happens and then the bad guy or the person who's done wrong will repent, right?
Yes.
Or decide to change their ways. Now, that's just the first step because they still don't have the tools to deal with whatever problems they caused in the first place, right?
So today, let's talk about change, right? Anytime there's a problem in any kind of relationship, whether it's at home or at work, we automatically feel like the change needs to come from the other person.
Well, you know, that stems from the thing we always talk about in terms of like blame as well, right?
Yes.
Because we always feel that when something so-called bad happens, we blame another person. We say, oh, this person did this thing to me, or because they behave in this manner that's causing me to be so upset.
And you know what's interesting is that if, let's say, I feel that, okay lah, it's not just this person's fault, I'm also a little bit at fault, then you feel like, oh, it's okay to apologize. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of the times, this blame thing is very interesting. It's if I feel that you are to be blamed, then I feel righteously angry. Because it's you, it's not me, right?
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Yeah, it feel like it's okay that I'm angry because it's your fault, lah. But if I feel like, but a bit of it is my fault, lah, then okay, lah, then it's okay to say sorry. Then it's okay to not be so angry. But that is not. I mean, logically, it doesn't make sense. But emotionally, I feel like, yeah, this makes sense emotionally. But what we don't realize is that it doesn't matter who's right, who's wrong, who's to be blamed, whose fault is it. At the end of the day, the only people we have absolute power over is ourselves. So the other thing about like this apology thing, right, is that only if I feel like I've also done something wrong that I feel like I can apologize. And I think that becomes like this thing that hurts us even more because it's actually really hard to hold on to animosity for so long.
Yeah, and it's very toxic as well. It makes you feel like your days are poisoned, you know? And I feel like when it comes to apologies, one mindset that I think might be useful, I found it useful, is to think about it in terms of, I'm sorry that you feel bad. Like this whole situation, I don't want you to feel so unhappy. I am unhappy, and I'm sorry that you feel like that. And it doesn't matter if my fault. And I think that sometimes, you know, something happens to someone, and sometimes we say sorry when someone's pet passed away or something. I'm so sorry.
It's not like it's your fault.
It's not like you caused it. And I think the mindset is the same. It's saying that I'm coming into this empathizing with how you feel.
Yes. So that's the ideal scenario, okay? So that's what we want to practice. Now, in reality, let's say me and Yuri, you know, we're both already like triggered, we're both like higher emotions. Now, this is actually quite hard to practice, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you say like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, it can feel like, I'm sorry you feel that way. You know?
And that's
like
the thing about what people say and how we receive it as well, right?
Yes, that's true. But the person could also be very fueled by indignance and defensiveness, and they can say it in that way that
sorry lah.
It's true, right? And so one of my pet peeves, I think, when we disagree, right, is when you apologize for something, but I feel like he's still very upset. and he is not in a reflective mode. So my whole thing is I don't need apologies, right? I need someone to think about themselves and to process things on their own. And even if, let's say, Yuri tells me, oh, you know what, I need a bit of time to process this and think about this, I think I would probably appreciate that more than, oh, I'm so sorry, because I know that you don't really know why you're sorry. You're just sorry that, the situation has gone really badly, or maybe the reflection for me.
But this is interesting also because it's coming from my point of view of what you should be like.
True.
Right? And that's also a kind of blame, I think.
True.
Right?
True.
So
it's actually what I would like, not so much what you should be like.
Yeah, and so it's that's why the channels of communication is so important for channel communication to be open. In the sense of our openness to listen to one another even in times of difficulty.
Yes.
And that's a skill. It's not something that's saying that, oh, I intend to do that and I can do that. Right? It's as with any of these emotional sort of efforts, right? It's something you practice. You try it in a small sort of situation, and you try in a more difficult situation, and try a more difficult situation, and you build some kind of muscle. And it's one of those muscles that you don't see on your body, right? But you actually experience it. Yeah.
Yes, the growth is incredible. And I think we've experienced a lot of growth in the past 2 years. And since we're talking about like the topic of change, I think it's really important for us to talk about how, for us to even practice happiness or practice communication in a relationship, we each had to take responsibility for our own unhappiness, which means that, like you talk about blame, right? So when we are unhappy with a situation, it usually involves somebody. And automatically, we would feel like the solution lies in you communicating to that person
what they need to change.
Yes, exactly. And because you feel like you're right, because you feel like that person is wrong and you're right, and therefore it doesn't make sense for me to change, it makes sense for you to change, right? And I think that if we had gone down that path, we wouldn't be together today.
Yeah. I think that's the thing about what we say about righteous indignance. We've mentioned this before, right? In terms of the sense of saying that I'm right and you're wrong, and the thing that needs to be changed is you.
Yes.
Right? So righteous indignance seems to be like I'm coming from a good place, because I'm coming from the place that is the correct way to do things and the not hurtful way to do things, or whatever it might be. And I'm here to say that righteous indignance is entirely unproductive. There's no useful righteous indignance out there.
I mean, when we say like stubbornness, and sometimes we can see stubbornness as a very like helpful thing. And I think like in certain areas, yes, if your stubbornness results in resilience, then yes, it's very helpful. But if the stubbornness results in like, I refuse to so-called back down because I feel like you are not backing down, then there's me creating my own suffering. And I think that is a responsibility that we have to own.
Yeah.
Because I do feel that, yes, whilst the person's actions can cause hurt, or whilst the person's action can cause you to have challenges and difficulties, how we respond to that and how we process that and how we solve that, or how we even approach to solving it, that's within our own power. There's nothing to do with the other person, And I said to Yuri before, and it still holds true, till today, like whatever I realized that even after going through the whole cycle of like what I need from him or what I'm unhappy about, I realized after all the processing is that it always comes back to me. And I always tell myself like everything that I want him to be, let's say I want you to be like more contented or more happy, whatever it is, like I have to take the advice myself. But it's easy to think like, but I'm already like that, what? That's why I'm telling you to be more like that. But actually the actual truth is, when you are not contented with someone else's discontentment, you are also
discontent
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I know how to like, lift myself up. I know how to be happy. It's this person that doesn't know how to be happy. But the fact that you are unhappy with their unhappiness means you're also not happy, right?
Yeah. Just this morning we were talking about how the world is a mirror, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of things are actually reflections of our own mindset and our own perspectives on the world and our own attitudes towards the world, right? Yeah. And it's not to say that we are to blame, right?
No, it's not.
I don't think, blame, not having a blame mindset extends to ourselves as well. means we don't blame ourselves. We don't blame other people too.
Because blame is really not necessary in the picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's very unproductive. It's not useful.
Mm.
So I like to think of saying that let's move towards a place that has a solution. Now, what is the solution? Change of action, change of place, a change of situation. Who knows what it might be if we open ourselves to the creative possibilities rather than saying that, oh, it's all due to this person, right? And they're the ones who have to fix it because they cause it.
And also, I think sometimes we feel like we need to justify our ill feelings towards somebody. Like, I need people to agree with me that this person is indeed horrible or this person has indeed done something wrong. Then I feel validated. But if there's nobody agreeing with me or nobody validating me, then it makes me feel judged. I'm not supposed to feel angry, right? And all this happens actually not with other people. All this happens internally. We feel judged because we already judge ourselves. So in some way, when we have ill feelings towards someone or whatever it is, like whatever discomfort we feel inside, if you feel like it's a sign, if you feel like you need other people to kind of validate your ill opinion of someone or your frustration towards someone, it really comes from something within ourselves that we need to examine. Like, okay, so it's okay to not like someone, honestly. Why do you want to feel bad for not liking someone? Because if you don't feel bad for not liking someone, then you don't need to justify not liking someone. Then you don't need people to agree with you. And then you don't feel like you're being judged because you feel like it's okay for me to not like someone. Because like Yuri was saying, right, that like this morning we were talking about chemistry, because sometimes different people just have different chemistry, right? And it's just really hard to like in your workplace, work with someone with a certain personality, with a certain characteristic, your connection is not there, the chemistry is not there, and it's just hard. And I think it's okay to admit that. It's okay to be human in that scenario. We don't have to beat ourselves up over it and say that, oh my God, we have to like love everybody, like hugs and kisses,
Yeah. Conversely, this what you're saying about the justification, I think it's a really good thing to explore as well, because whenever I feel upset about, say, like something you do, or I find that I have to have the story to justify it.
Right.
Like, oh, it's because she didn't do this properly, or she's in a way that's very careless or something like that, right? So, and this cycle is very useless after exploring it. It only wants to perpetuate itself because you have a feeling that needs to be justified by some internal logic, which also increases the feeling, which is this cycle that keeps on going, that's feeding each other. The feeling needs a justification, and the justification feeds the feeling.
Yeah.
So you got to tell yourself at some point, like, what's the use of this?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way I approach it. Like, is it functional to me in some way?
Yeah.
If it's not functionally to me in some way, then I think I want to approach it in a different way.
Yeah. And I think like just trying to justify our, frustration at someone or irritation at someone is very different from reflecting upon our frustration or irritation at someone. These are two different things, right? So it's not about just like, I'm frustrated at this person, I just don't think about it. But, it's not trying to find reasons about like, oh, like it's because this person's like that, this person's like that. But it's more like looking internally and say that, okay, so this person did something that really hurt me or upset me. Now, why do I care so much about this particular thing, right? Where does it come from, right? Why do I need this, right? And if I really need this person to speak to me in a particular way or give me a particular thing, then at least once I know where it comes from, I can request from the person and say that, oh, when you speak to me in this tone of voice, it makes me feel like maybe very scared or whatever, because, that's how my parents used to talk to me when I was young, or maybe my last abusive relationship was like that, or whatever it is. Like, then at least when we verbalize and communicate, it doesn't come from like, you need to change because that's wrong, like honestly, for my own happiness, there is no right, no wrong, no blame, whatever. There is only what I want, what I don't want, and why, right? I feel like it's okay to want certain things, and it's okay to not want certain things, right? It doesn't mean you have to be right to want something.
Yeah, and you can also move towards your preferences, like, you want this person to speak to you in a nicer way or treat you better. in many ways, right? You can maybe you might feel that this kind of person has a personality where they reciprocate your kind of energy that you give them. There are many ways to approach a problem, right? And if you
Yeah.
want to solve it, you can creatively find all the possible ways based on the tools that you have, right?
Yeah.
So, but if when we come from a place of saying that, oh, this person is the bad guy or the bad girl, and we're going to fix them, right? And they need to do something, otherwise they're going down the depths of hell.
It's really important to not have a villain in the story.
Yeah.
Like my mom always tells me there's two sides to every story. So depending on whose book you're reading, obviously if you're reading my book, I'm the hero, he's the villain. Obviously you're reading his book, like he's the hero, I'm the villain.
Oh, no villains in my book.
Oh, no
All
villains.
heroes.
Oh, okay. Yay. So it really depends, in that sense. So, ultimately when it comes down to, let's say, a relationship and communication, right? What we don't want happening is that we start to feel like this person needs to change because otherwise I'm going to constantly be unhappy. However, that's like really like ideally, we don't want that happening. But realistically, it is very true that a person's actions can really affect our happiness, right? Especially in a relationship where you're like seeing each other every day and you're close, right? And so what we found really worked for us, or what I find really worked for me, and I think Yuri likes that style too, which is for me to take responsibility. Like I take responsibility for my needs and my preferences. And if I feel like this is something that is very important to me, I will make a request, right? I will tell Yuri, oh, this is important to me, and I'll tell him why it is. Now, then after that communication, I have to be able to be okay whilst he decides whether there's something he wants to give to me or not, whether there's something he wants to change. Do you know what I mean? So it's not to say that, with your partner, like you cannot change them, means you cannot like request for anything and you just have to suffer, I don't mean that at all. I mean like taking responsibility that whether the person change is not up to you. It's really not up to you, right? But you always have the ability and the power to request and ask for something. And it's their prerogative whether they want to give it to you, and sometimes whether they even have the capability to give it to you. If I tell him, hey, I want you to go and chop, like wood, and I want it to be like this tall.
Let's do it. Where's my axe?
You get my drift, right? You get my drift. Yeah, it's a bad example, but yeah, you get it. So it's like the country is so hot, somewhere. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's important for us. I was just saying this to another person the other day, like when we present something to our partner, we have to allow for them to not agree or to not understand. Because to us it's so clear. But their mind is not our mind, like the way they function is different from how we function. So when you say something and you bring we're trying to be patient and kind, and you say it in a patient and kind way, then the person react like defensively or like angrily, and then you feel super triggered. You're like, wow, I'm really being so patient, I'm really being so kind, like I'm making this request because Xandria say, you should make a request from your partner, but you see the way you react towards me, you're so not loving, not patient, and that's the thing, right? Because the expectation in our mind is that, oh, when I tell you in a loving way, you will receive it in a loving way. But that's not true. A lot of the times, the person will see it from their point of view, with their own fears, their own insecurities, then all that defensive mechanism will come out, and then maybe we will perceive that as aggression, or the person don't care about me or whatever, but it's actually not about us. It's like they need time to process, right? And they need time to understand what we're saying, because we can understand what we're saying very clearly, but the other person may not.
And I feel like, sometimes in these kind of situations, you feel very powerless because you can feel very powerless because you wish the person would do something or not do something, and you request, and the person doesn't seem to get it very positively, right? Even though you say, I'm going to channel my
inner
whatever,
Yoda.
and do this, right? But I think that the way to have sort of like influence over your happiness, right?
Yeah.
Is to decide what you want to be. You want to be happy. You want to find calm in your life. You want to find lovingness in your life. There are so many things that we can do, and I think about it very often. There's so many things that I can do in terms of making my life more calm, more harmonious, happier, more joyful, and
And that's power.
and that's power. And regardless of how you choose to react to it, I know that I can choose what I want to do with my life currently because there's so many to do, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? That I would love to explore.
This is the practice of happiness, and in theory, obviously it sounds easy, but when the person is, triggering you, or you are being triggered by the person, or you find the person very irritating, or the person gets on your nerves, or you just don't like certain thing about the person, this practice comes in even more handy, even more important actually, because then that's when we need to we're working, it's like you're on a treadmill and you're running, it's very easy every day, but then suddenly you have to like run
Extra weights on your shoulder or something.
yeah,
like
and it becomes very hard. But that's where the training is. When it's tough, that's where the training is. And that's when we remind ourselves that, hey, you know what? Actually, we cannot change another person. So if we keep getting upset at the person because of how they are, we're just killing ourselves here, honestly.
One of the things you were saying like about being triggered, right? I think one of the most useful things that we sort of develop between ourselves is the recognition of when we are being triggered. Because sometimes it seems to be quite transparent. It's quite sneaky, this
It's
ego
very
thing.
sneaky,
It slips into this being triggered zone without really feeling like you've been triggered, but you're a bit blind to it, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I think the more you recognize the flavor of when you are being triggered,
Yes.
then you can recognize that, this is the point where I start becoming unproductive, right?
Yes, yes.
And start maybe saying that, let's take a step back.
Yes,
And I'm
because-
not going to really want to push anymore or do have an agenda right now. I just want to sort of sit in peace for a while.
Yeah,
right?
the stress and the anxiety or like the frustration can really mount up and it can be very suffering.
Yeah. So, like there's this sort of exercise with children, you tell them to take 10 deep breaths and stuff like that. I think that's extremely useful for anybody, not just children.
Yeah.
Where, just being still for a while and letting sort of the
Yeah.
high emotions dissipate a little bit
Yes.
does help.
Yeah, and I think like at the end of the day, we need to acknowledge our humanity, which means that let's face it, you could unless you're a monk and you like meditate like almost 90% of the time, or you don't really need to be interacting with like normal society, like going to work and then having like the pressure of your boss or whatever, or having a relationship, and then having children or whatever it is, because like honestly, I feel like if we why are you
Never mind, go ahead. I'm just thinking about a monk.
okay, if we feel stressed or anxious or whatever it is based on like all the life things that we're experiencing, it's okay. I think like we don't need to like feel like, oh my god, we need to be happy and like we're watching happiness videos.
Yeah, don't feel unhappy at feeling unhappy sometimes.
Yes.
It's a cycle like,
Yes.
I'm supposed to be happy right now, but I'm so unhappy, so that makes me unhappy.
Yes.
When I'm going to be happy next,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think like sometimes we're not aware that we're actually very unhappy or stressed out. Like Yuri says, it's hard for us to determine it ourselves. And so there's just something to be aware of. And I think like the most important thing in life is to take responsibility for our own happiness. And that means that change does not come from another person. What we have power over is to change the situation. If we cannot change the situation, then we can change ourselves, right? And we need to find a solution within ourselves. The solution is never, if you change, then I'll be happy. Yeah.
And I always think it's good to start small. Start with, small things regarding those things that you wish to sort of get better at.
Yeah.
And then, don't sweat like jumping into the deep end straight away.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you probably don't have the strength or the ability to kind of
Yeah, so
swim there.
I'm sure you guys watching, you know at least one person, maybe just in your family that actually irritate or annoying the heck out of you, and maybe just start with that person, and just acknowledging that like these triggers are coming from inside you. It is not like this person being this evil lord, and and making your life miserable. And you know what? This person can actually be super insecure, and everything that come out from your mouth is toxic, and that could be the case, right? But their toxicity is not going to like just absorb into your body and become poison, It's the poison comes from our own emotion, right? So we need to be able to know how to navigate that in a way that we are not constantly stressed or anxious or unhappy. Yeah. So, okay, we're going to go pick Zach up right now. My mom has Zach, so this is all the time we have for today. But, leave in the comments any topics you want us to talk about. Maybe we can talk
Yeah,
about
and
this.
if any thoughts about what we spoke about as well, and you like contribute anything, please feel free to do so.
All right, till next time, be happy.
Always.
Bye.